Sziasztok! Köszöntelek benneteket a Filmnóvek oldalon. Mai nap lesz a Speak utolsó része, hogy ti is lássátok majd a két képet, amiről fogok beszélni. Itt lesz majd alattam. Mai nap a Speak Spell-nek a lemez borítójáról fogunk beszélni az utolsó részben. Először is meglátogatjuk Montreal-t is Brian Griffin-től berakom a videót. Brian Griffin csinálta a Depeche Mode-nak Speak Spell-től a Black Celebration-ék az összeelső képet, a lemezborítós képeket, és azért hát most csináltak ők még régebben egy videót, és azt fogom berakni. Amúgy a Brian Griffinnek ez a vicces, hogy pont most van a borítóknak képek, amiket csinált kiállításra. Jól van, akkor szerintem nézzük is meg először Bon George-ékat.
Right guys, it's finally that moment. The man is here, it's Mr. Brian Griffin, and we're going to jump straight in. Hi guys, and welcome to Piano and Keyboard Artist, where we discuss the artists related to pianos, keyboards and synthesizers. And the day is finally here, it's Mr. Brian Griffin.
Good to see you, Vaughn, and good to be here in the studio.
Guys, as you know, this is part of that long-awaited Depeche Mode album review series, where I'm going to run through all the Depeche Mode albums from Speak and Spell all the way to Spirit in chronological order, and we're going to go through every album in a lot of detail, and then in conjunction with that, I'm going to have the interview with my good friend and our legendary photographer, Mr. Brian Griffin. Because as we know, Brian did all the album covers from Speak and Spell all the way to Black Celebration. So Brian was really associated with what we would call the best Depeche Mode albums. But what we're going to do with part of this series is, guys, and this is an exclusive, as far as I'm aware, Brian has never sort of discussed every album in detail, you know, on a internet series like this. So I'm very pleased to present that to you guys here on the Bon George channel. And just to keep it focused, because there's a lot to talk about, we're going to dedicate every episode specifically to one album cover. And so, obviously with chronological order, we're going to dedicate today's one to, and I'm going to get Brian to hold this up, Speak and Spell. Now, Brian came, Brian came in this morning holding this up. And tell us more about this print, Brian.
Yeah, this is a print that's for sale. Well, in fact, all my Depeche Mode photography is for sale. Not just Speak and Spell, but as this program's about Speak and Spell, these are the prints that I'm selling. And you can just get in contact with me or get in contact with Vaughn, and we can arrange everything for you. And get it delivered to your home, office, or wherever you might be.
Well, I'm actually going to place an order right now, Brian. We're probably off to the... I mean, I'm just looking at this now. As I say, I'm a music guy. I'm not a photography guy. But the actual finish on this, it's like a gloss. Could you explain what this is, Brian?
Yeah, this is obviously a digital print, because we shot everything in the old days on transparency. And all the Depeche Mode history, or the history of my Depeche Mode work rather, has been digitized, and we can reproduce any of the images in accordance to who might want one. And this is a digital print. It's an archival pigment print. All my prints I sign and I dispatch off. This is a particularly big one, as you can see, but they do come smaller as well.
What size is that? A? That's big.
Oh, it's quite big, isn't it?
A2?
Yeah, it's about, I would think about 2024.
2024, okay.
When it gets to 2024 and bigger, then they become special editions, really. And they're numbered from edition of 21, and they're signed. Whilst if there's just small little prints, they're open editions, so they go on into infinity and they're not numbered, but they're signed as well. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, well, we're going to put that down. So guys, we're going to give you some more information at the end if you'd like to get in touch with Brian or myself to get hold of one of these wonderful prints. And I'm just going to put it here so it'll kind of add a nice enhancement to the background. Now, as you know, guys, with the style of my videos, completely unscripted. We just run through it like it's just you and me and Brian in a room, and we're gonna discuss this like a bunch of friends. Right. So here I have my vinyl of a broken frame. Sorry, cut, speak and spell. I'm so used to when I see Brian, I always think of a broken frame. I don't know why. But also, just randomly, Brian has got a message on his t-shirt there for all you Polish fans.
I love Łódź.
Łódź.
Łódź is one of my favourite cities in the world, really.
Is it?
I've exhibited there a few times and I just love going there, yeah.
You're a bit like Depeche Mode in that you're more popular in Germany and Poland than you are in the UK.
Much more popular.
Yeah.
Much more popular. I mean, Poland, yeah, it's incredible. My popularity, which is good, a good feeling, really, when you're sometimes ignored in other areas, you know?
Don't worry, Brian, we don't ignore you again. At least what's nice about the UK is we've got so many legends that live here, but no one really pays attention to them. So which is nice. They kind of you kind of get to live a quiet life.
That's true. You are right. I see it's a gatefold.
This is a gatefold. Yeah, this is a reissue.
Right.
So I actually want to ask you, what do you think? Obviously, because your eye is obviously in tune with the actual original colour. So what would you say about the print of that?
I think it's an excellent print, actually, because obviously way back then,
it was through the Rockstar dark glasses. You can. There we go.
I can tell you, because like back then we just everything was printed so awful. It was so awful, all the printing.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So if you did any photographs for a band or an artist in the music industry, you always had to ensure that it was technically easy to reproduce, really, and because they were literally, it was like so bad.
Really?
But now it's obviously with modern technology and modern printing techniques, I mean, the quality of the reproduction is far better.
And would you say, slightly different topic on the subject of photography, though, it's easier obviously for people who want to get into photography these days to do it. It's like with music, the technology has made things so much easier.
Oh, of course.
But as a result of that, there's a lot less artistic approach, because you've got a camera which can do a lot of the basic settings for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite good for people who like to take photographs now, because the camera is a computer and you can get everything basically right, whilst back in these days, although this is not that old, it's only like 40 years old, isn't it? Or something?
That's not old.
39 years old.
But what's interesting, as I say, Brian, when we take photos these days, you have a viewfinder in the back and you can go, no. In those days, you had to get it right, and you could only tell what you had photographed once you got back to the darkroom, because you...
Well, no, not in the case of... yes, that is true to a certain extent, but we used Polaroid.
Oh, I see.
I mean, I used to use Hasselblads, obviously, because Hasselblads are square cameras, and album covers are square, so it made sense to shoot something square instead of cropping into it, like with 35mm or something. So we used the Hasselblad, and I suppose the most expensive and top camera at the time, really, and basically a studio camera, although you can handle it. And we had a Polaroid back that fitted on the back, so we could check. It was only a little 6x6 image that we could check, and see if we were happy with it before we actually committed it to film. We used very little film, because we weren't like wandering around. The camera was on a tripod. It was fixed. Everything was fixed out there. The swan didn't move. It was stuffed.
We're going to get to that in a moment, yeah.
And we'll get to the makeup of the image. And we would just get the lighting that we liked, and then we would commit it to film.
Yeah, it's a little bit like music production these days. I talked to the guys on my Geek Talk series, back in the day when we used analog and tape, you had to get to a point where you had to commit. Whereas these days, when you're working probably with photography as well and with music, everything can be saved and recalled, and as a result, we never commit and we never finish projects. So a lot can be learned, guys, from Brian and his generation about just getting shit done and just committing and.
Well, yeah, I mean you had to. I mean you had to be technically pretty good. I had a very early beginning in in my working life where I was not working as a photographer, I was working as an engineer and things, and so I was technically pretty sharp, really, and sharp is the right terminology.
You're pretty sharp, Brian.
Pretty sharp, and I knew what I was doing. But now you don't really need to know what you're doing that much. You can just
artificial
gather
intelligence.
it. Yeah, just gather it with this computer that fits in front of your eye, really, or you raise to your eye. And it'll all work out fine, but it has degenerated photography to a certain extent. People accept, can we say, lesser powerful images these days than they would have done back there.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, you would have been scolded, if the image wasn't strong, people would be quite dynamic, and now they said, "Oh, that's crap," or "That's awful," or whatever. But now everyone seems to accept anything, really.
And it's also, I think, it's because things move so fast now. Content is king. You've just got to get things out.
Very good term.
People haven't actually got time to digest things.
Content is king. That's great. Yeah. I agree with you totally.
It is. But guys, so let's start off with. Okay, so it's 1981. Brian, how did you get involved with Depeche Mode? Who contacted you?
Everyone who does anything thinks about things being lucky times, lucky occasions. We were lucky to win. We were lucky to get that job. Whatever, everything. Luck tends to bring into play.
But you make your own luck as well, of course.
But you sort of make your own luck in the sense that there's a place called Seymour Place, actually. I think it was called Seymour Place in London. It's just after off Marylebone Road, in sort of Baker Street, Marylebone area. And Daniel Miller, who had started Mute Records at the time, and made his money really from Warm Leatherette, remember the single he made with the Normal,
Oh yeah.
And he had a little office, like a ground floor shop, and there were 2 or 3 of them downstairs, but upstairs was my photography agent called David Burnham. He actually had the lease on the whole building. Right. So his office was above Daniel's, and then his home, that is my agent's home, was above his own office, so it was like a tiered system there. Yeah. And of course, when I went to meet my agent, I'd be upstairs, and of course I had a portfolio which he took around to try and get me work, but there was work down below his office.
Oh, brilliant.
So he went down there with my portfolio. I'd done Graham Parker's Parkerville at the time. I'd worked on it with Iggy Pop. I'd done Joe Jackson's Look Sharp, which is a very famous cover.
Yeah.
I did Iggy Pop Soldier in all the singles there. So Daniel was quite pleased. He had the agent upstairs that controlled the photographer, and it looked like the photographer could get things right.
So it was like a convenience thing, really.
A convenience thing.
Oh,
so it was convenient for me because I got the job, i.e. that was lucky.
Yeah.
And 2, it was good for Daniel because he had a photographer that knew what he was doing just upstairs.
Absolutely.
I didn't live there, obviously, but I constantly visited there, and so Daniel commissioned me and became a lifelong friend after that.
Are you still in touch with Daniel?
Very much. I mean, he lives up the street.
He's not far from here, is he?
From where you are now in your studio, Vaughan, and where I live in this block. He's literally probably 20 minutes walk. 25 minutes walk from here, or 5 minutes on the bus.
Well, I'll jump on the bus one day and go and harass him.
Yeah.
But okay, so you met them through convenience, and that's interesting. How you got to meet them. Now, a question I have to ask you, Brian, and guys, something. I've known Brian for a few years now, but I've never actually. I don't like to get all fanboy with Brian. I like to, when I see Brian, I like to have a drink with him and just treat him as a friend. I don't like to be picking his brain on all things Depeche Mode, because I'm sure that happens a lot. But I'm going to ask Brian the question now that I'm sure all of you have been pondering. What is this idea with a swan with cellophane? How did you do it? What was the inspiration? And yeah.
This is a very awkward one to talk about. I had a genius friend who'd done a lot of album covers over the years. It started on Hawkwind and developed through Ian Drury, Elvis Costello and all those sort of people, all the punk bands, everything. And he designed my book, Brian Griffin, Copyright 1978, in 1978. It's my first book, which is amazing, what he did with that. And he was a genius, essentially. His name was Barney Bubbles, an absolute genius. You can see his work by going on to barneybubbles.com, or you can buy the book by Paul Gorman, which is Reasons to be Cheerful, the life and work of Barney Bubbles. So we worked together after doing this, and prior to this, often on books and on album covers, single bags, things. And I thought this is an opportunity, because I got this job, as I was saying earlier, doing this Speak and Spell album cover, and I thought, get Barney to do the graphics, which he did do, as you can see. He never gave himself credit on anything he ever did, so you never know what he did.
So he's getting the credit now.
So he's getting the credit now. He never told anybody anything. Wow. He would accept names. Like of the local builders, merchants, or a local shop or something, he'd call himself that if he had to give himself a credit. So it's hard to find his work unless you buy a book, of course, or go on the internet, barneybubbles.com. So Barney designed it, and it's like a real minimal design, and it was difficult for both of us at the time doing this cover, because
it's the first one, so you're thinking
it's the first
you've got to get it
one.
right.
And I don't know what state of mind I was in for me to come up with this album. Can you imagine? Well, I know what I'll do. I'll put a swan in a plastic bag. I mean, it's ridiculous. The only thing I do know is the fact that I used to use, there's this foil material, it's plasticated foil, that when you, in your home, you can buy from a builder's merchants or whatever, or a hardware shop, and you put it behind your radiator against the wall. So therefore, the heat from the radiator doesn't go into the wall and get absorbed. It actually gets reflected out into the room, so you get the total heat from the radiator. It's not like baker foil, it's not like a metallic one, it's like, it has like a metallic nature.
Is it kind of like a cellophane, like almost like that plastic you put over like you know, these bouquets of flowers and things?
Yeah, it's quite thick. It's relatively thick. It's probably another stage up from that.
So like it crinkles when
you can't really crease it that much. It's plasticated.
Oh, I see. So you
and you can cut it up into any length you want. And so therefore, for this photograph, I put a lot of it on the ground, as you can probably see physically, certainly here with the creases here. And then I put my red lights onto it, and then it reflected up onto the background. I always used to have a big white surface that was portable on wheels that you could move around, really big, like about 10 meters, well, no, that's too much, 7 or 8 meters by about 4 meters high, and I would move that around, but then it would be perfect white background where I could project this light up onto it that bounced off my lights hitting this foil. So that gave us all these strange effects on the background, the lights sort of bouncing back up, and of course some of the lights strayed from there used to be gelatins over the lights. They're tungsten lamps, constant burning lights, and we put red gelatine over them, but of course there'd be some leakage of white light down the edge occasionally. If you turn the light a bit to the side, it would come out the edge, and so you get this white effect here. And obviously I moved that white light effect around a bit, so it came behind the swan's neck there to get that sort of effect.
So how much of this is intentional, and how much of it is happy accident? And I mean, do you actually like see this? And
it's totally controlled, yeah.
Oh, really? So you actually...
Those were the sort of demands made on us at that time. Nothing... I mean, we did create by accident over the years, of course, but on most occasions it was really planned. Because I was paid. I mean, you probably heard Vince Clarke, I think on one video for Depeche Mode.
He said it was like £1,000.
£1,000.
He was moaning it.
He was moaning like anything. And of course, £1,000 in 1981.
What would that be equivalent to today?
I don't know. Is it twice as much, 3 times as much, 4 times
it's
as
more.
much?
We should Google that out, guys. If you're an economist or something, what is £1,000 now? £1,000 in 1981. What does that equate to now? That is interesting. You can't, but is there a market to charge that kind of money now for this kind of thing?
I would get it now, probably, if someone wanted me to, with a vast history and knowledge I have. Someone would have to pay probably far more than that. now.
Yeah.
But that was a reasonable fee for not an advertising job. Advertising was a higher fee than that, actually. But the music industry fee around that time, there were probably photographers in America getting much more than that. You know, some of the great rock photographers in America would be charging far more. So I thought it was a very reasonable fee, but Vince was really not very happy about it. But he's got 100 million now, so I mean he probably thinks it's only a small amount.
I wouldn't mind to be £1 million behind him.
I wouldn't mind being 80 or 90 million behind him. In fact, I wouldn't mind being 99 million behind him. In fact, I wouldn't mind being 99,999,000 behind him. But yeah.
Yeah, so Vince Clarke has made a lot of money, and I think Depeche Mode, and I mean even old Fletch, who does the least, bless him, he seems to have done well.
Exactly.
So okay, so coming back to where is it? Coming back to this, Brian. So obviously we know it was £1,000 back in 1981, but of course there's a bit of pressure on you to deliver something which hopefully will lead to repeat business. But the obviously the theme of a swan. So Daniel the band would come to you and say, we need an album cover. The band is called Depeche Mode. The album's called Speak and Spell. Did any of the members come to, or was this completely your idea?
I would like to own it and say this was completely my idea. If someone comes forward now and say, look, we talked about that, I'm happy to accept that, because it's so blurry, you know, my memory, because we're as you quite rightly said, we're talking 38 years ago or something, so it's really difficult amongst thousands of commissions, thousands of jobs, hundreds of album covers, etc.
Lots of drinks and
all sorts of things. And I remember meeting Vince, and I know Vince wasn't in the band very long, unfortunately, because he's an extremely talented man, of course. And I remember meeting Daniel, of course. He was always there through all the album covers I did. Daniel was very much by my side in terms of discussing ideas.
He was very hands-on. And
very hands-on, yeah. Daniel was, regarding discussing ideas. I know that they were rather horrified when they saw the end result.
Oh, really?
And I think I was extremely lucky to get another cover after this one.
When they say horrified, was it the band that was horrified, or was it Daniel that was horrified?
The band were horrified.
No. But then again, they didn't know much. They were quite naive, and I don't mean to be disrespectful with them, but it's well known.
How old were they? 17?
They were about 18 or 19, but it's well known through legend that in the beginning, you know, they were very passionate, but they were quite happy to jump in the studio, throw things down, then just bugger off and go clubbing, and let Daniel and Gareth Jones at the time finish all their music. So,
very true.
So I think it was probably, correct me if I'm wrong, it was probably Daniel Miller who had the final say and said, no, look guys, this is good for you. And because had it been up to the band, they would have probably rejected it.
They probably would.
So
Daniel was always a great support, really, throughout my career with Depeche Mode. And he became, as I said earlier, a really good friend. And I don't know, because when I think of the band back then, I see them as like blurry figures, in a sense, like you were just saying about Gareth and about Daniel. They were sort of there, but not really there.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. But Daniel was really there.
Yeah.
And then if Gareth would appear during my history with Depeche Mode, Gareth would appear because he was working on the album in some way. He was engineering something. He was mixing. I don't know what he was doing, but he would appear and say hello. Yeah. And he became quite a good friend, because I can remember going to his flat in Berlin. You know, that is Gareth's.
Gareth. Yeah.
So he obviously became a sort of friend that I was going to meet in the future over many times. Because this is what tended to happen with Depeche Mode albums, was that it'd be me and Daniel obviously working on the album as well, and the meetings would always be, apart from this one actually, I think we met in the office for this one, but all the future ones were met, we met in the studio, whichever studio they were working at. And that's why I saw Gareth, and that's why I was intensely involved with Daniel, because the band were doing other things within the studio, whether they were relaxing, whether they were playing pool, or whether
so it was a bar. Was that football? That table football?
Or whatever. So I never got really close to the members of the band, although I saw them on every album cover session that we did, and they finalised the idea with me. They would come and join Daniel and me and finalise the idea.
But I think Daniel was kind of like, he had a very big... Had they said we don't like it, Daniel could have probably vetoed it and said, well, look, guys, this is good for you. Because I think he made and I've said this a lot on the channel before, guys, that Daniel Miller and Gareth Jones, who I really, really hope to interview one day, they had a profound effect on that band, and you know, and Daniel with his also the contract, the handshake seals a contract. You know, what I don't know what the deal was at the time, but legend has it that it was signed on a handshake. You know.
Well, I never got orders for any of the shoots. They would tell me the budget. So although Vince may have complained at that particular time, it was a budget agreed between my agent at the time and Daniel. Yeah. And what was also interesting about this cover is the fact that over my career doing covers, some of them were really rejected, or some of them were regarded as so dreadful. But in the end, they've become some of the most desirable. And this one has become incredibly desirable cover.
You see, Brian, this is the thing. We take like a broken frame, which we'll talk about on the next interview. That was regarded one of the most iconic photos of the last 30 years or so. But something like this, you know, some people, I think at the time, you know, there's different reviews flying around. Some people thought it was that. Some people said it was pretentious. Some people said it was kitsch and everything. But I think, Brian, you can back me up here. I think with any art, with any great art, you have to be a little bit mad and a little bit. But within that being a little bit mad, you've got to be careful not to come across.
Madness,
be careful to not come across as pretentious. This is the thing. But I mean, a completely different subject. But can I just ask you, this swan, what was it? It's not paper mache. What was it?
It was no, I hired it from a taxidermist.
So it's a real swan. It's a stuffed swan. Yeah, no swans were harmed in the making of this album cover. Just by the way,
exactly. Apparently, I mean, the strange thing about it, in a gallerist or a very big gallery where my Depeche Mode work might be shown in the near future. Saw this photograph just a month or so ago and said, that's very now, because
it's quite timeless,
regarding plasticity or plastic in the oceans and birds dying from plastic. A swan covered in plastic is so appropriate,
that is
so
true.
Perfect.
So
today.
Brian was 40. He was 40 years ahead of his time. You get this, Vince? That is why he charged £1,000 for it. He was 40 years ahead of his time. That's very interesting.
It's interesting, her take on it. You know, her take, and guess where the gallery is? The gallery is very close to where Basildon, where Depeche Mode come from.
Oh, is that in Essex?
Yeah.
And you're going to be doing something there later?
I hope to have a show, of my music photography there, and especially my Depeche Mode photography.
Guys, and I don't want to go off topic, but I want to keep you updated with Brian's progress. You know, he's doing a lot. This man works harder. I think he works harder than I do. Maybe you work, but you do. He's always flying all over the world, exhibitions and everything, and he's always graceful. He's always got time. One of my subscribers was telling me he's sort of friends with Alan Wilder. He knows Alan Wilder very well, and he always talks about Alan Wilder being a really gracious, you know, just one of these people. He's got so much time for people. And Brian, you're a lot like that as well. So
thank you.
I'll take that tenner now. So obviously there's a lot that Brian is going to be doing, and I want to keep you guys updated with this, because I will be going to a lot more of his you know, exhibitions and stuff, and I would love it, you know, if it's appropriate to the gallery and everything, that we can bring some of you subscribers down to meet Brian and everything. Of course, bearing in mind that Brian's catalogue is huge. He's done, I mean, I was looking at his pop book the other day, and it's just iconic. I don't think any photographer now can ever say he's worked with that many iconic artists. I mean, we can't even go through the list here. We'll do a separate video on that afterwards.
Loads and loads of bands I did, and individual artists. Well, what was great about Depeche Mode, I didn't have to photograph them very often, and they fully realised that that it's more powerful to produce an image that is not of the band.
Correct.
You know, because
Yeah.
it makes things universal. You can do amazing things.
And timeless, yeah.
And timeless. And they were very clever like that. And as you know, the top album covers I did for them, they were never featured.
Well, it's interesting, and also back in the days, in the 80s, when Depeche Mode released the album, and then they would release the singles, and then those great remixes and stuff. For instance, like I'm thinking now of some of the albums like Construction Time Again, or indeed this one, all of them really. You would have the album cover, but then you would have variations of that cover used on different releases, and that was just really great. And it's a this goes back to the time of albums, and I don't want to be negative towards technology in the industry these days, but gone are the days where you put down an album and you kind of experience it. Now everything's kind of consumption. You've got like a digital playlist, and you're just listening to random songs from different artists, and this just really is and I always try to get this across to the younger subscribers, is that this is the days, with vinyl and everything, it's the days of proper music loving and consumption, as opposed to just fast and furious.
I mean, like you touched on Construction Time Again. I know this particular episode is not about Construction Time Again, but I'd just like to announce this because it's quite appropriate. When Vaughan said, there were other photographs in an album cover session that were used for other reasons, whether they were singles or posters or whatever. And in fact, there's an exhibition that opens in Saarbrücken in Germany, as you know, towards the end of September. You saw it on Facebook. And they used a photograph from the Depeche Mode's photo session I did for Construction Time Again. They used not the album cover, but as you know, another image from that session as the main poster for the festival.
And would they sometimes, because obviously you take a series of album covers, who would have you would come back and say, this is the suggestion? Would they sometimes choose something? Because I think someone said, looking at your Construction Time Again series, and of course different subject, that the actual image for Construction Time Again, some people felt that there were other images that were actually stronger than that were used for the album cover.
That was my finest session with Depeche Mode. Construction Time Again. It offered up so many great images, which there was a feast of images they could have used, and I didn't have any influence over what they used on that front cover.
So you just presented
it was
them
between Martin Atkins and Daniel Miller in the band. They chose their favourite. I would have chosen something different, but I wasn't there to make the choice.
Well, of course, and as I say, the next episode will be on Construction Time Again, and as I have to keep emphasising to people is, you see that image of the man, or the soldier with the hammer, and most people, you'd show it them and they kind of just look at it, but they don't actually understand that this was the days before Photoshop. It's not done on a green screen. You were actually up in the Alps, and
was, yeah.
But yeah, we're going. So just coming back to the Speak and Spell album. So as you say, as that lady in the gallery said, this is a tremendous sort of. It's tremendously appropriate to these days, as you say, like swans that are dying and plastic and.
Birds swallowing
because
plastics.
Yeah, there is a tremendous campaign now to rid the world of plastic, and
so it's appropriate how the world turns around. I.e., people like the album covers that people thought were awful and now become really powerful and important. And secondly, some of the symbolism in the covers become relevant. And
it's good that you're still you're here to see it, Brian, and thank God. And may you
just about.
No, because what I'm saying is the funny thing is a lot of artists only become famous when they die. Which is terrible. So it's great to see that you've actually...
Mortality frightens me,
yeah. Who was that guy a while ago? I think he fabricated his own death or something, and his wife was involved or something. Anyway, remain on topic. Right, guys, as I say, I'm so happy to have Brian on the channel, and as I say, we're quite relaxed and free-flowing with this. I think afterwards we're going to look back at it and say, oh, I wish I'd asked you this, and I'd asked you this, but being respectful of your time, I'm sure in future we can get Brian back again. As I say, I'd love to keep Brian a part of this channel, this community, and with the various exhibitions he's doing, I would like to inform you guys as to what's happening, and I'd like to be there as well. But before we get to that, I just want to ask you, Brian, are there any other sort of like closing comments you want to make about the Speak and Spell album cover, your experience at the time with Depeche Mode, and anything that comes to mind at the time?
Of that particular session, you mean, on that particular album cover, yeah?
Of this album cover, yeah.
Well, an element of sadness, you know, that my studio doesn't exist anymore, which was also up the street here in Rotherhithe, because I've been here for 39 years now, and my studio is up there. Sad because these sessions bring back the memory of that wonderful studio. It was one of the great photo studios in London, believe me. We played great music pumped out from the speakers, and it was perfect. All these bands would come down. In fact, Depeche Mode did come down, because I did that compilation album down the street.
You did, and that was that Work Hard song. You've got to work hard, you've got to work hard. It's kind of like in an industrial...
That's right.
Yeah.
And they were in this oil refinery, this oil storage place, which is next door to this building.
God, if I think of the vastness and the diversity of Brian's catalogue, I'm just thinking, because you also did, and as I say, you did Talk, and my channel members have asked me to talk about Talk, and Kate Bush, and these are all people you photographed. So guys, just get used to it. You're going to be seeing Brian a lot on this channel if he's up for it.
I'm up for it.
He's up for it. Okay, guys. So I think what I'd like you to do is I would love you to please leave your comments below. You know, ask any questions you want for me. You know, to elaborate on any questions for Brian, and then I just want to sort of put you guys in touch with Brian. Now, as I say, Brian is. He's a current photographer. He's pretty much kicking, and he's out all the time. He's just come back from France now. Yeah. You're back to Germany when?
For the exhibition of pop at Pop Rat. It's a big festival in Saarbrücken in Germany, which opens with my work opens anyway towards the end of September. You can go on the internet and look at Pop Rat Saarbrücken, and you'll see my show and lots of other exhibitions. The whole city is taken over by pop music, and I'll be there launching my pop exhibition in the Parliament. I've risen up. My show's in the Parliament. It's maybe because I'm getting old or something, but I'm really in the Parliament now instead of being like down the street in a little venue. So yeah, come along to the private view, which is at the very end of September.
And Brian, your website?
My website is briangriffin.co.uk. briangriffin.co.uk.
Yeah, and just as I say, but I'm going to be within a lot of the videos I'm going to be doing now is, you know, I'm going to be doing a weekly blog, and every now and then I'd like to include what Brian's up to and everything. But also, if you're London based, because Brian, when was it, a couple of months ago, Brian and I were at the MMX gallery here in New Cross in London, and Brian, it was that particular exhibition was all about your black and white.
Yeah.
But he was very kind to actually unveil the broken frame print.
Yeah.
But can I just tell the guys a funny little joke here? And this is only funny if you're a geek, like we all are here. What happened was when Brian unveiled that broken frame print.
Yeah.
Tell them what happened to the frame.
The frame was broken, yeah.
So Brian...
It had come over from America, by the way. It had been shipped over from America, and it was broken.
So the broken frame was broken, and I just thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
And of course, anyone who's not a DM or a Brian Griffin fan will think we're completely bonkers, but that was quite funny. But anyway, that was displayed in the MMX gallery. And
still is on display.
It's still on display, and that's what I'm getting to. The next thing is, now, that exhibition and that print, which is on display in the MMX gallery, how long is this exhibition? Till the 3rd of August?
Till the 3rd of August.
The 3rd of August.
Yeah.
So I'm putting you on the spot here, Brian. I'm going on holiday. I'm leaving. I'm going to Estonia from the 18th till the 28th. So I'm back on the 29th of July, which is my birthday. So send us me. send some money.
Returns.
So. But I'm just thinking, would there be time for us to sort of organise like a hangout in the MMX gallery?
Yeah, absolutely. You mean
because
a gathering?
A gathering. Because I just think, and actually, guys,
bring your own beer though.
Because last time I think Brian spent a fortune on the beer and everything, and
bring your own beer.
Bring your own beer. But I think what I would like to ask is, I think. Before we do this, guys, if you could just leave your comments below and let me know what kind of interest there is. As I say, so I'm back from Estonia on the 29th of July, but then that gives us, and that's a Monday, so that probably gives us till about the 3rd
Saturday
of that week,
I think.
Yeah.
That's when the closing party is, yeah.
Oh, okay. So you'd be happy to bring some of my riffraff subscribers down? And
Bring your
run
own
you guys.
beer.
But okay, guys. But we'll
Yeah.
we'll talk about that in more detail. But this, what I'm saying is, this is what I love about Brian. He's just so approachable, and so he's just like a guy you'd meet down the pub.
Which you have done a few times.
Yeah, which he does. Brian, any other closing statements on the Broken Frame?
Yeah, the Prince.
Oh, so a Broken Frame. Speak and spell. The Prince, yes. Guys,
Broken Frame is so
it's
famous.
it's so
It's probably
famous.
the most famous photograph in the world now. Near enough.
Yeah. And I think,
Go on.
yeah, I'm just saying. I think we don't want to cause a versus so and so versus so and so, but it's interesting how Brian had done the album covers all the way up until Black Celebration,
Correct.
and then they got Anton on
board.
and
Yeah.
you know, Anton brought a completely different
Look to it.
look and a different vibe to it. And as I always talk about apples and bananas, you know, you can't compare them. But as and not to flatter you, Brian, a lot of my subscribers, when I speak about you on this channel, have said that they feel that your album covers are the best as far as character and richness are concerned.
Yeah.
So I don't know who manages the Depeche Mode these days, but if you're watching, we would like to see another album with Alan Wilder and Brian Griffin and possibly Gareth Jones. Yeah. Anyway, I'm getting all fanboy. Guys, I want to thank you so much for spending the time with Brian and I want to thank you, Mr. Brian Griffin.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much. Guys, I'm going to leave all the information in the description below with links to how you can contact myself or Brian. I'm sure Brian being a really approachable guy will probably do like I might be able to twist his arm. They can do a special offer for some of the subscribers on this channel. But as I say, we're going to be interviewing him a lot more, and hopefully you can come and meet us at one of the many hangouts we're going to be organising. Guys, this is Vaughan and Mr. Brian Griffin. We'll see you on the next episode, which is construction time again. Lots of love.
Lots of love. Bye for now.
Hát, Ron George-ék jó hosszú időig beszéltek arról a lemezről, borítóról, ezért nem is akarom nagyon elhúzni az időt, ugye hát lemez borító, az eredeti Speak and Span 81, az piros a háttér, ilyen fák vannak, és egy szoborhattyú van fölötte, és ilyen zacskóval, vagy nem tudom pontosan mivel, így be van takarva. A 88-as fajtája, ami a CD fajta is, az pedig ott fekete, egy kis rész, ott ír pár dolgot, és a többi rész az pont ugye ez a hattyú, csak jóval megközelítve, tulajdonképpen csak a feje és a nyaka látszik, és ilyen ott még jobban látszódik talán ez a celofán, és nem celofán, hanem ez a műanyag, és ugye hát piros a háttér. Ez a lemezborító. Én most ennyit mondanák róla, miért mondja, hogy jól elhúzták az időt, de ez nem baj. Ugye hát én, hogy Takács Matolcsi fennülök oldalra. Sziasztok!